Elvis Presley, the singer who shaked, rattled, and rolled his way to rock history in the 1950s, died today in Memphis. He was 42.
If you change your mind,
take a chance,
I'm the first in line. Honey, I'm still free. Take a chance on me.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of A Musical Deep Dive, where I take you back in time to a significant year in music history, and we just talk about what exactly made it significant. I'm your semi-official music aficionado, Jake Williams, here to take you to another fantastic year in music. Last week, we talked about 1969. This week, we're going to be talking about 1977. There was a bunch of stuff that happened this year, mainly a bunch of iconic songs and iconic albums that released, mainly from a little group called Fleetwood Mac. There was also the rise of a seemingly short-lived music format, disco. And we also lost one of the greatest and most iconic musicians of all time. So without further ado, let's jump right in to 1977. Let's start this discussion off with the most iconic album to be released in 1977, and also the third most sold album from that year, Rumors by Fleetwood Mac. Fleetwood Mac, consisting of Stevie Nicks, Lindsey Buckingham, Mick Fleetwood, and John and Christine McVie, recorded Rumors in 1976, released it in 1977, and overnight it became an instant classic. Fleetwood Mac became one of the sole faces of the soft rock genre, with a lot of their songs just consisting of soft instrumentation and light vocals. One thing that shocked me was that this was actually their 11th album. Since 1968, they had been releasing about one album per year, which is pretty damn impressive. The group wanted to make an album that was more poppy than their previous albums, but also stayed true to their roots. This was done with a bunch of electric and acoustic instrumentation, which can especially be heard on tracks such as The Chain and Go Your Own Way. The album quickly shot to number 1 and has remained on the Billboard 200 for a whopping 652 weeks. And as of right now, it currently sits at number 27, which for an album that is almost 50 years old is incredibly impressive. The next album I'm going to talk about is not necessarily a super well-known album. Of course, the band is very well-known, but when you think of albums by Queen, you probably don't immediately think of News of the World. Queen was one of the defining bands for the arena rock genre. Essentially, it's exactly as it sounds. It means songs that are best played with a large crowd of people in an arena. And this is quite evident with the two most popular songs from this album, We Will Rock You and We Are the Champions. Both of these tracks became incredibly synonymous with one another, with a lot of classic rock radio stations to this day playing both songs back to back as one joint song. Because of the driving force that Queen had on the arena rock genre, especially during this time, both of these songs also became just synonymous with sporting events and other competitive nature, usually as a hype-up song or a walkout song. A lot of people probably don't think about this when they think of Queen, but they also specialized, especially with their earlier works, in progressive rock. And somebody else who specialized in progressive rock was the person who had the number 1 album of 1977. Of course, I'm talking about Bat Out of Hell by Meatloaf. For those who are unfamiliar with the term progressive rock, it essentially means longer rock songs that put heavy emphasis on its instrumentation. Most of them will have a lengthy guitar solo. This album is also best known for its title track, Bat Out of Hell, which is 10 minutes long and does have a lengthy guitar solo. People over time have also said that this album in particular is very similar to that of Born to Run by Bruce Springsteen, just with the overall style and instrumentation of the record. Meatloaf has also come out to say that he wasn't necessarily influenced by said album, but more so inspired to make the album. This album is still insanely popular to this day, being one of the top-selling albums of all time, selling 43 million units and selling about 200,000 every year. In the midst of all of these songs that came out, there was still only one that made it to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 at the end of the year. And that song was Tonight's the Night, Gonna Be Alright by Rod Stewart. If you listen to the song today for the first time, it might just seem like a typical Rod Stewart song. And to some, it is. But many people have considered this to be his signature song, despite it being quite controversial when it first came out. Upon the song's release, it was actually banned in several countries and on several radio stations, simply because one lyric in particular was rather suggestive for the time. And that lyric reads, "Come on, my angel, my heart's on fire. Don't deny your man's desire. You'd be a fool to stop this tide. Spread your wings and let me come inside." Now, listening to that lyric now doesn't seem like anything. I mean, we hear much worse stuff on the top 40 radio today. But one thing that I think we often forget was around this time, parents were burning rock records like crazy and basically saying that it's the devil's music and having a negative influence on their children. Now let's talk about one of these genres that blew up this year, thanks to one specific movie that released, Saturday Night Fever, which popularized the disco genre. Disco is a subgenre of pop music, dance music, hip-hop music, and a whole bunch of others. It really became popular among minority groups such as African Americans, Italians, the LGBTQ+ communities, and Latino communities. The reason that it became super popular with minorities was because the genre as a whole spawned a plethora of nightlife communities, most of which were designated specifically for people in those communities. The most notable of which being Studio 54 in Manhattan. If you went to one of these nightclubs, you would often see a whole bunch of flashy lights, a whole bunch of elaborate costumes, and a whole lot of disco tunes. You would probably also hear stuff from a particular group called the Bee Gees. In 1977, they released their arguably biggest hit, Stayin' Alive, which was written for the soundtrack of the 1977 movie Saturday Night Fever, starring John Travolta. Now, the Bee Gees had been making music for several years at this point, but this album in particular was what really put them on top, especially in the States. Aside from Stayin' Alive, they also contributed to the album with songs such as How Deep Is Your Love and More Than a Woman, both of which have become immensely popular and associated with this particular film. Lastly, it wouldn't be a musical deep dive if I didn't at least bring up the death of one of the most iconic musicians of all time. Elvis Presley. On August 16th, 1977, Elvis Presley died in his home at Graceland in Memphis. He died from a heart attack, which was likely due to his excessive drug use, his diabetes, and his just overall unhealthy lifestyle that he frequented, especially in his prime in the 50s. His funeral was held in Graceland on August 18th, and over 80,000 people attended. And shortly after, somebody tried to steal his remains. 6 days after the funeral, grave robbers appeared at the site in an attempt to steal Elvis's grave. After unsuccessfully doing so, he was reburied and placed in the Graceland Meditation Garden on October the 2nd. Shortly after his death, Way Down, which was the last single he recorded while he was alive, topped the charts, peaking at number 1 on the Hot Country Songs of 1977 and at number 18 on the Billboard Hot 100. One thing that quickly became popular after his death were the conspiracy theories that he didn't actually die. And since then, many people on multiple occasions claimed to have seen Elvis. and an entire conspiracy theory group claims that there was just something off about his funeral. One thing about the conspiracy theories about Elvis was his spelling of his name on his tombstone. Many people claim that his middle name was spelled A-R-O-N, which in reality it was spelled A-A-R-O-N, the actual spelling of his middle name. This particular conspiracy theory also paved way for other conspiracy theories about musicians to take place. But instead of them being alive, it's about alive musicians being dead. In 2011, there was a conspiracy theory that stated that Avril Lavigne died in the year 2003, only 1 year after her debut album released, and was quickly replaced by a body double named Melissa. Many people back this up by saying her performance style is not the same way that it used to be, and that her mannerisms are also slightly off. These were quickly disproven by Avril herself. So there you have it, a year full of disco, Fleetwood Mac, and no more Elvis. Thank you guys for watching this episode of A Musical Deep Dive. No new episode next week, but tune in on October the 14th where we talk about 1981 and the rise of MTV. I'll talk to you soon.